All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the SDR Hotline. I am your host, Gabrielle Blackwell, and today I'm really excited for y'all to be here. So I have like the founders, the most amazing people that I feel like I've come across in a long time. François, Patrick, and Amy from 5 on Friday. So welcome, y'all. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Good to be here.
We get to tell the origin story.
Yeah, you get to tell the origin story. But before we even get into that, can we do like some like François? I know you, Patrick. I think I'm in a WhatsApp group with you, Amy. I like know who you are, but I haven't ever like really talked to you one-on-one whatsoever. So maybe we could start off with like a quick round of introductions, just like who you are, what you do outside of 5 on Friday, and we can start there.
Amy, hit it off.
Okay, so I mean, outside of 5 on Friday, my day job, I'm a territory account manager for Fortinet, so I sell cybersecurity. And I'm also like a avid like equestrian horse girl, so that's kind of like my passion outside of like worky work. And yeah, I've been in sales for a long time, customer service, and then transitioned to my sales career kind of early in my career. So it's something near and dear to me, and I struggled with it a lot when I was like, you know, a fledgling little beginner salesperson. So seeing kind of people, you know, struggle and being able to mentor them is like a big part of the passion about what I do these days. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm extremely weird, just like the rest of these crew.
I love it. I love it. Sorry, you're gonna hear this one go crazy. Sorry.
That's a good pitch.
Yeah, it's like she sees a rabbit outside and then goes rabbit. But Patrick, how about your side?
Oh, I'm a man of many names. Patrick Downs, P. Diddy, Pat Daddy, PD, P. Diddy, all the names, all the combinations you could think of. I'm the sales enablement manager at PandaDoc. I'm a podcast host, Customer Engagement Lab. I'm a poet. I wanted to be an English teacher, but I ended up teaching sales instead, which was maybe a mistake. We'll see. Still trying to figure that out.
I love it. And we're a rapper, poet. Oh my gosh, Luna's going insane right now. I apologize. COVID life, right? But François, how about you?
I mean, you can tell, like, we don't take each other that seriously, and that's maybe why we're still doing this after a year, because we only have like 2 rules when people come on, like no jerks, have fun, and so far that's worked. Yeah, I mean, I started like on a help desk 20 years ago. I was wearing the headset and like jockeying calls, like tech support. I came kind of from the technical space and then got into sales. And it's kind of funny that I'm like helping people, giving people feedback, because I was like a terrible, terrible student. I still have nightmares about like not finishing high school. So other than that, I think I'm like the token Canadian in this group. I think Patrick and Amy were like, we gotta have a mix, right? So yeah, that's kind of a bit about me, and you know that I binge watched Emily in Paris. I don't know if I should be ashamed of that.
So
but
good.
How was it, Frank? How was it?
Good.
It's so good. It's so good. François put me on. He's like, it's a little, what do you call it? Kitschy? It's like a little kitschy.
It's so kitschy.
No, but
I'm the only one here that hasn't watched it.
Dude, watch it.
It's so good. I used to live in Paris. I lived there for 2 years, and I was like, this is actually really spot on. So it was so good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like the epitome of social selling, if you will. Like, it's really cool. But it's like way cooler than any of us will ever be.
It's so good.
Speak for yourself,
it's so
Amy.
good. You have to watch it. And then after that, you'll have to watch Bridgerton. So it's like a way into the next thing. So here, how about this? I would because it sounds like there's some interesting origin stories for the individuals here on this on the screen. But I mean, Amy, you've kind of mentioned a little bit about struggling as a fledgling sales rep, but I would love to hear how everyone even got into sales and like kind of what your initial years were like when you're in the sales role.
Go for it, Amy.
All right. Well, I'll kick it off. So I never went to college. So I went straight into like the corporate world, really from straight out of high school. Matter of fact, even in high school, I was working at a credit union. and I started out in customer service and just loved it, loved being able to help people and solve problems. And a lot of times I was solving the problems from like crappy sales reps, like, you know, like over promising and under delivering. And I actually got invited to apply for a sales role. So I had a sales manager go to my manager in customer service and say, we think Amy would be really good for this role. And they kind of just supported that shift in my career, which was, you know, really affirming for me at a really young age. Maybe like a little ego driven on my end because I was like, yeah, they picked me. But you know, sales is hard and I learned that real quick. But that's kind of how I got into it, was just, I think because I was, you know, like solid on the customer service side, and that was really a benefit going into a sales role. So it was kind of a natural transition for me. So that's how I got started.
I love it. And Patrick, because I mean, you're not in a sales specific role, right? You're in enablement, training, things like that. But I'd be curious to hear, initial years into sales and even maybe what's prompted the move into sales enablement.
Yeah, I was in direct sales for 5 years, starting in 2014. I was a college graduate. I thought I was going to be a teacher, as I mentioned earlier, but then I realized I hate kids and teenagers, and that's not a great combination. So I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? There was this alumni board at UNH, the school I went to, and there was all these jobs, and there was one that was for Yelp, for an account executive, and it was all the way across the country in Arizona. I was in New Hampshire at the time, in the Northeast. And I was like, account executive, I don't really know what that is. I've seen Mad Men. I assumed I was going to be able to like drink bourbon and like hang out all day, which was not the case. So I moved across the country in my Isuzu rodeo, which had a broken transmission. And me and my mom drove the thing across the country. It broke down twice. Had to pay for the fixes. Couldn't afford a hotel between it. I didn't even have an apartment booked when I got there. The day I landed in Arizona, I was on the phone with a realtor and I got an apartment and was able to like just leave my car and go right in there. And the next day I started at the job, which was crazy. And it was immediately cold calling. It was not a good experience. I've never faced that many people hating me in my life. And if you know anything about Yelp, people don't love Yelp. So it's like you get paid all day to not be liked. But I found myself being pretty good at it. I was like, wow, I'm really good at people yelling at me. That's weird. Huh? And I found myself really internalizing the training, and I was immediately able to kind of teach the people around me. So I was immediately wanting to be more of a coach, but I did stay in the role for about 5 years. I've been an AE, I've been full cycle, I've been SDR, I've done all that stuff. And I'd love to share that experience with people because I think a lot of trainers go like straight from an MBA into like that kind of role, like into a management role, and they don't have that experience. So I think my specialty kind of lies in the fact that I was in the trenches.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Francois, how about you? What prompts you to get into sales? What were those first few years like?
I mean, Patrick's just got a big heart. He's not going to admit it, but he just loves helping people. And I think, Amy and I do as well. But so I came from the tech side, and I think it's cheesy as it sounds. I think I saw the salespeople and I knew what the commission checks were like, and I saw the vehicles they drove. So I was like, well, I could do that. Little did I know, right? Like I was like, that seems easy, because the questions they had for me were like dumb. So the way I got into it is, I think first, so I didn't do any formal training. Like I had a technical training background. I saw like a route through pre-sales. So it's like, oh, here's my like wedge in, and I was doing Toastmasters on the side, and I had hosted another kind of networking group because I love like meeting people. It's like a strength and a curse. I could talk to anybody or listen to anybody all day, and then eventually when like pre-sales kind of there wasn't that. I saw an opportunity to get in sales, so that's how I did it. And I've been mostly really lucky, like in kind of the same partner ecosystem. So I know that space really well. So that's my origin story. But I always laugh at how I used to think it was easy, and now like I'm like, man, I had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, it can be amazing, but it can be like the most painful, difficult job in the world.
I had to do was it last week with my team? I did a presentation on like, this is a hard job to do. Like it is not, because I take that moment of, all right, I've been in sales for like 6 years. I'm mostly focused on sales development, right? As a SDR manager. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is not easy. Like, I don't think it gets easier. And if we're waiting for somebody to all of a sudden make it easier for us, like we are going to be waiting a long time. So this is not, it's not an easy thing to do. I'd be curious, like what keeps y'all in it though?
I think for me, so I think there's components of it that get easier, but sales by its nature is never going to be easy because of the pressure and the fact that we can't control all the variables. We can't control all the outcomes. And that's the hardest thing, right? Is being able to put all the work in, and at the end of the day, you still don't get it done. So that's probably the most stressful factor because, when you're a sales rep, they don't oftentimes, you have people from the outside looking in and all they see is that you lost a sale, right? They don't see all the hard work that went into it. So I feel like there's components of what we do that get easier with time, specifically like the conversational side of sales, the confidence that you can get, all the tools and sales methods that you can pull from, and that all kind of gets easier with time. You kind of develop your own tried and true method, if you will. But I think we're gluttons for punishment, man. I think that most salespeople that do it, I think they're doing it because it's exciting. You can't control all the outcomes. There's a measure of mystery involved, and I don't know. I honestly think a lot of us are gluttons for punishment. It's like, let me see how badly I can fail this week and maybe how greatly I can overcome next week. And we just roll with the highs and the lows. And I don't know, maybe we're like addicts, sales I don't know. It's hard to explain.
No,
we're all crazy.
I think it takes a special kind of I appreciate myself a lot, but I'm also willing to go through hell to accomplish my goals at the same time too. So there is a little bit of am I a psycho? I think
yeah.
So.
I think you have to accept that, right? I know Patrick's sometimes he sits in silent on calls and I just see his brain going and I'm like, what he's thinking. In the private chat, on 5 on Fridays, I'll be like, Patrick, you're next. Patrick, do the threat of pain, because I like to see how people tick. And I think salespeople inherently have I don't know, this intrinsic driver that's probably half lunacy. And we have to be okay with that and embrace it. It's like embracing the suck. It's embrace the psycho.
Oh my God. Yo, we could have a whole other LinkedIn Live just on that piece of let me overcome all this childhood trauma through my job right now. Here we go.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Someone said the reason I sell is because I can't do anything else. Amen.
Amen.
Great, Andy.
Gosh, oh my gosh. But yeah, I'd be curious. Patrick and Francois, how about you? What keeps you in sales, or what are the things? Yeah, what are the things that keep you motivated and driven and sticking in this industry?
I'll go first. I still think maybe this. I don't know. I don't think it sounds cheesy. I do fundamentally think we're helping somebody solve a problem. When they're picking up the phone, Patrick will often use this on a 5 on Friday. He's like, what is the event that made Gabrielle pick up the phone and go I've had it. I need somebody to help me with this. And so they're calling you. And so I tell people, especially when it's a relative that doesn't understand what I do, I'm I do kind of the same thing I did 20 years ago. People called me before because they needed help solving a problem. People call me now because they need help solving a problem. I just happen to maybe sell something at the end of many, many, many conversations. And it's really interesting, when we throughout the year, we've seen a lot of people, I think that tunnel vision happens. And so, I'd say I don't know, you guys call me out, Patrick and Amy, 2/3 of the time, someone ends up going, wait a minute, can you just remind us, how are you helping a customer here? Can you explain that? Because they get into this, well, we do all these amazing things and these features and these functions, and everybody's okay, but what's your point? If I was talking to you, I would be I don't even really know why you're talking to me. How are you going to help me? That's all I care about. I'm a selfish customer. Can you help me or not? And that's what I do. I tell people when I'm calling, and sometimes I can't help them. And I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting that. And I get it when you've got the barrel of the quota on your neck. Of course you want to, but it's not going to help you long term. So that was a rant. Patrick, either back me up or call me out.
No, that was a great rant. I'm not really sure how that answered the question, but it's like really, but I like love that. I love what you said.
Gabrielle was like, "Yo, what keeps you in sales?" And Frank said, "Well, here's some sales advice."
Well, here's sales is don't t-shirt dumped.
I love you, Frankie. I feel like sales is so big too. Like, why doesn't anyone ever go up to someone in science and go like, "Why are you still in science?" Right? Like, there's math and logic and all these subtopics within it, right? Sales is the same way. There's psychology and like data analysis and all these and copywriting and all these skills inside of it. And I think anybody can kind of stick on to one of them, right? Like, I'm a really strong copywriter, or I'm really good at data analysis, or I'm very creative with like high level strategy, or I have a lot of soft skills and I'm good communicating. There's so many little things. So I think sales is this endless void that you can sort of spin around forever trying different things in. And then all the different career paths, right? Like sales enablement, management, AE, SE, AM, like there's all these different things you could do. Like, I don't know how you could get sick of it.
Ooh, that was such a good one. Yeah, an void.
Are you interviewing? Like, sounds like he's like that's like an epic interview question. Like, nailed it.
Well done. I'm gonna say like, yeah, an endless void of like whatever you want it to be. That's amazing. And maybe getting into like what started 5 on Friday. I'd be curious. Like what motivated y'all? What brought y'all together? Number one, and how did this coming together birth what is now 5 on Friday?
I think it started with a crazy thread on LinkedIn. Patrick was like, I think you had like a t-shirt, like a comical t-shirt you were thinking, and then we all like collided in this ridiculous thread, and then went into DMs. But I don't want to tell the whole story. But is that kind of how it first started, Patrick?
Yeah, it was breakfast
the grape t-shirt. It was the grape t-shirt. Yeah, like I have an emoji. It's the grape emoji. I use it for everything. And I printed like 100 t-shirts that had the grape emoji on it. And I think I just like posted a joke in a networking thread. And these two idiots ended up commenting on it and became best friends.
Yeah. Like we were commenting like breakfast themed jokes too. Like, that's excellent. And like stupid stuff like that. And I remember thinking like Francois, like when I first saw him on LinkedIn, I thought he was like too cool for school. Like he was like this cool French Canadian, and like Patrick was just like this goofball, and like every single comment was just hysterical. But like tinged with like some serious side where I'm like, I think he really means that. And I think one thing just led to another. Like we just really vibed with each other. And I think it was at a period of time on LinkedIn where everyone was so serious about everything, like all the time. And here we were like showing up on people's comment threads, like dropping just ridiculous jokes and memes and, kind of bonding, if you will. And I don't know, that just kind of led over into us talking about sales and sales process and how we do things, and agreeing that like, there was a lot of like suck factor in sales. And if we could help people that were kind of stuck in that zone where they just really maybe couldn't afford to like get paid help or coaching, or they just wanted some advice and we could have some fun with it at the same time. Like, wow. Like I think we were more excited about like potential outtakes from 5 on Friday sessions than we were anything else. Like we still haven't done a blooper reel, and I'm just, that's all I'm living for right now is the blooper reel.
Well, I think we not the serious side, but I think we all kind of offered to give each other, like, I can't remember who started it, but
yeah.
We said, like, hey, it was around this time of the year, or maybe February. We was like, hey, I know you've talked about your Q1 coming up. I'll give you some feedback on it as like an outsider. We all offered that, and then we were all like, other people would want this, like obviously. So we said, well, let's offer it up to people. We kind of thought, I don't know if this will actually work. We did it once, and we're like, that was pretty fun. The person clearly loved it. We got a lot of people like signing up. I think at first what was interesting was there was a lot of people who signed up to present. So I thought they were like, great, free feedback. But then I don't know how long it took. It shifted. Like then tons of people said, hey, we'd like love to participate. Because I think a lot of people, I mean, not everybody is willing to like present in public, but I think a lot of people love the idea of giving some free advice, But also, if you're trying to like get better at coaching, or let's say you want to like move it up into a leadership or management, like how do you practice that? So this gives you an opportunity to like be on the sidelines of like, you know, starting to try it. And like, I know all of us have like, we've done 50 plus episodes. I was doing the math the other day. I'm like, I've got basically 50 free hours of advice from people that are more experienced than me sitting in on these calls. Like, it's been amazing just getting, and you know, there's like what, almost 250 people who've come through it. So I tell people it's like a mini, I don't want to say MBA, but like a master class.
Yeah. That's so good. I'll be honest with you. In my head, I mean, I've been on 5 on Friday as a coach, right? As providing feedback. And I thought about it more so of like being a value to the person who's presenting and receiving that feedback. But yeah, like the process of, all right, hey, like, let me sit here. Let me listen to something that I have absolutely no idea about. Right. Like I was like, I know Gong, or at the company that I was at another company, Infutor, right? It's like, I know Infutor stuff. But I was like, I have no idea what, like, it was Vlad. Vlad was on there, right? It's like I have no idea what he's talking about. So like you have to get away from the features and the functions and the demo and all of that, and really go to the basics of how are you connecting with this individual? How are you going about discovering what they actually care about? How are you going about discovering what kind of gaps they might be experiencing that is inhibiting them from getting to where they want to be? So like, yeah, just like, I mean, that's amazing practice for the person delivering that feedback.
And I'm sure like Amy and Patrick would say, like, it's made me a better salesperson too, because I've been in on these, and like, I'll be the first one to admit I got the tunnel vision too. So it's like, it level sets, right? You're like, oh yeah, like, you know, I can get stuck in I have the same challenges the people that come on. And what's really cool is people come on with, I don't know, 2 weeks, but pretty junior, and even senior people. Like, we all can get kind of in this game in our head where, you know, we forget like how we're helping somebody because there's a bazillion other things we're trying to highlight, or, you know, we're in this stage of a sales cycle. There's so much psychological, you know, components, and you're never going to want to go to your colleague because, you know, they'll have part of the same tunnel vision as you. So I think that's why people love that outside perspective.
Yeah, that's true. And like I remember the first couple episodes, and Patrick was on, and like the first time he kind of talked about like his cold call strategy and like the threat of pain and, you know, all of that. And I was like my mind was blown. And after that, I was just like, I just want to come on these calls every Friday so I can get like free training for myself, you know? Because I learned so much from being put in that environment. And I think that, you know, even like junior salespeople we can benefit from them. Like we had a 20-year-old come on, and this guy was like, we were like all of us were just shocked and in awe because he was so well spoken, and he was really like, I mean, he knew his stuff. He started a business when he was like 14 that was profitable. I mean, it was crazy. And we were like all sitting there in awe of this kid. And I learned something from that. I learned a lot about like the, you know, conversation and the poise that he brought. And I think that that's something that a lot of us kind of, I call us salty old sea dogs, like salty old sales reps, or whatever you want to call us. But I feel like we can learn from like the younger generation and people that haven't been at it. Like, we get a lot of people on that have not been in sales for very long. Like, a lot of times they're like startup founders, and they're like the engineers behind the products they're creating, but they're also the VP of sales, the VP of marketing. They're wearing all these hats. And when you have someone like that come on there, you know, they may not know a lot about the sales aspect of it, which is where we kind of come in, but man, like, they will blow our minds on what they do know. And I think I leave humbled a lot of the time. And I know that I can say the same thing for a lot of the guest coaches that come on. You know, they leave kind of feeling like, wow, you know, like that was kind of neat, kind of sitting with people from different perspectives, different backgrounds, selling into different verticals. Some of them are SDR, some of them are enterprise. I mean, it's really kind of a cool collective, and you learn a lot. And I don't know, Patrick, what do you think?
My favorite part is, like, I feel like there's always been this weird gatekeeping on like who can and can't give feedback, or who can't do whatever it is. And that's part of why I'm so quiet on the show sometimes, is I like giving voice to other people that may not normally have that opportunity to come on and give feedback. And I think a lot of people are finding their voice through our show. And to me, that is the most satisfying aspect of it. And like you said, Amy, some of the people that come on to present, I don't even know what to say sometimes. I'm just like, yo, can you give me feedback? Like, you're fantastic, you know? And it's weird how it's so consistent. And it's made me realize that I think we underestimate the sales community because there's so much hate on like LinkedIn and stuff about what people are doing wrong. But I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of brightness from the people that come on our show from every angle. And I'm trying to figure out how we can highlight that more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the thing that you hit the nail on the head, Patrick, with is like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, every product, every organization is going to have a different process, a different methodology they use. They're going to have to approach the market in a different way. And it's like, you know, this cold calling work for one company. Yes, maybe it doesn't work for another. And I feel like maybe sometimes on LinkedIn and social media in general, we can get very polarized. And I feel like the 5 on Friday has been like the opposite of that. It's been like, I mean, we've had people come on that like never cold call. They never, they were like, what is that? They solely prospect through LinkedIn or whatever. And I don't think we like crap all over. We never really crap on, you know, their mindset or the way that they are approaching things or their go-to-market strategy. We just kind of give them like an outsider's perspective and say like, hey, this might work, or have you considered this or whatever. And that's so important because so many people will point the finger and say, that's wrong. This is right. That sucks. I'm awesome. And that's not the real world. The real world is there's variables, you know, within every conversation. So that's important to keep that.
Yeah, I would love to get y'all's take on this. And I recognize I had said like, oh, hey, like if there's time, if we can do like a role play kind of thing. But I think maybe if I'm being selfish here, if I'm being the selfish buyer, the selfish host, because one of the things that I find with the reps that I'm coaching up right now is whether it's coaching like through SDR Nation or FlockJ, or if it's reps that are on my team at Gong, there is this piece around like finding their voice, right? They're like, all right, hey, I got taught this methodology. I got taught this way of launching a cold call, and I have to just follow this process. And we can get so bought into the features and the functions, but we can get so bought into the process that we're not fully present in the conversation. But I'd be curious to hear y'all's take on like, what is the message or what's the word that we can share with folks who might be like, hey, I'm just starting off. I feel like I have to speak the way that my company wants me to speak, but that's not really the way that I speak. How to find that balance?
Oh man. Okay, I'll take this and then I'll just say this really quick. I worked for a startup. It was selling volunteer management software to churches and nonprofits. And they had this script created for all of the SDRs. And it was the most robotic, uninspired garbage ever. And we were like told, you have to read that script verbatim. And it sucked. It was awful. And I was like, man, I'm going rogue. I'm going to do my own thing. And I rewrote the script and I made it all about passion and volunteering and really kind of drove to the heart of like what we were trying to inspire and you know, in a movement in the software that we were trying to sell. And before you knew it, it worked. I was like booking calls left and right. I had the highest number of booked meetings on the team. And they finally had to recognize that the way that they had worded things and the script they were forcing me to use wasn't working. And when I kind of turned it on its head and made it focus about passion and humanized it, and it worked. And we rewrote the script for everyone on the team. We shortened it. We were constantly kind of adjusting things, and boom, boom, boom. It was just like steady growth and improvement. So I feel like the meat and potatoes of it is if you go in somewhere and you feel like you have something to offer, and the way that you are making these calls and humanizing them, or you're seeing it from an outsider's perspective, that sales leaders need to listen to that, because that's like us sitting on a 5 on Friday call and hearing someone quote unquote pitch. And we're like, what problems do you solve? Like, what's the point behind this? And I think the like young new reps have a greater perspective on what this sounds like from an actual customer's perspective, from an outsider's perspective. And that's what is like gold. I mean, that's just money. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. I would not be afraid to use my voice and not stay in one lane. You just have to be like tactful, you know, like don't go in there and like shit on your manager's desk, like like show them through, like do the job, maybe make, you know, small incremental changes until you've kind of started to show results. And then you say, well, here are my results, but this is actually what I was doing to obtain them. You know,
Yeah.
what I would say.
You go next, Patrick.
Yeah, this is something that's been on my mind a lot because I've been talking a lot about like the 3 tenets of sales, which is strategy, tactics, and execution, right? And I think oftentimes we just give people tactics and we're just like, hey, here's your playbook with all the tactics in it. But we don't give them the North Star strategy and we don't focus at all on execution. Like how much training did you get as an SDR that's about tone, telling you about how a tone breaks down to the rhythm, the volume, the cadence of your speech, and the pitch. Like I never got that training. I had to get it elsewhere, right? So we don't talk about those things. So we're forgetting 2 of the major pillars. So I think we need to start focusing more on like best practices, giving people a North Star, and figuring out how we can help people find their own voice. Because if you're just taking a cadence and plugging someone in, like what's the point of even hiring that person? You could have hired anybody, right? You could have taken an AI and just plugged it into the cadence. You need to almost exploit what's great about that person by getting their voice into the process, which I feel like almost nobody does.
Man.
Okay, François, I want to hear your take on this, but there's something about like exploiting the strengths that somebody already possesses. So I think there's 2 sides of that. There's, all right, if I'm a manager or a leader of an organization, I need to have that awareness and that focus, but I do believe that also has to be something that the person is aware, the person in the rep position is also aware of as well in order for that to actually manifest. But we're going to pause on that. But François, I would love to get your take on this kind of initial question of like, how can people like really find their voice? Or I don't want to say like, hey, like rather than sacrificing your voice to like stay, like to maintain some kind of brand integrity for the company, like how to have that balance between the 2.
I think what's really interesting when we've done the role playing, and you know, I know we've all gone offline with people and said, hey, like the script I think is a good framework to kind of keep you on track. But Amy and Patrick brought up lots of good points, and I think sometimes what some people forget is it's like if this script that they're giving you, like you know, practice it. But if you don't actually feel comfortable saying these things, like they don't feel natural, then don't do them because the customer is going to pick up on that right away. And I think so many people still forget that that first cold call isn't about selling, right? It's like, you know, can I convince them that I can help them and build some trust? Great. But I think sometimes they have all that pressure, which then turns in some kind of commission breath, and they feel too desperate and they're just like, you know, robotically going through that. So, I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but I think they need to practice this, and this isn't a plug for what we're doing, but with someone else, because again, your colleague's going to have that tunnel vision. So just like practicing through different versions of it that feel natural, and where the other person on the other line's like, yeah, I can, what you're saying actually resonates, and you know, that other person probably having some sales understanding could help, but you know, it could just be a friend. Honestly, it's like talking in the mirror for Toastmasters. Everybody hates it, but you have to actually do it. Just like people say, you write your email like you speak. You got a cold call like you speak. Like if your script says something that you would never in your wildest dreams say, you're probably going to sound terrible saying it.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's okay to fail too, right? It's okay to practice, try a different script. You know, the only thing I would say there to young like reps or new sales reps is don't like try something new on every single call. Like there has to be a measurement factor there. Okay, like I've used this script for 20 calls today, and this is my success rate. And then I use this script, like so, kind of like your general A and B testing. I think we're so afraid to fail that we'll regurgitate the same garbage that isn't working over and over again. And it's easy for us. It's kind of it's like I'm waving the white flag a little bit and letting my manager know, like, hey, I'm regurgitating this script that you want me to regurgitate, and it's not working. And it's easy to fall back on that and kind of push the blame onto the manager or onto the script or whatever. But if you want to be successful in your role, you have to be willing to stick your neck out a little bit and try different things and you can A and B test with phone calls. And I've even completely dropped scripts entirely and just like tried to do it completely unscripted to see how that works. And you know, I think that I've found that in cold calling, having some idea of a script, like some general template, but allowing for just where the conversation flows and redirects naturally I've had the best results with that. Whereas if I try to just stick to the script and I try to pull that conversation just back to the script, that seems to be where it gets salesy and you get desperate. So that would be my advice, is test things and then allow yourself the opportunity to look back and see what your results were and how successful that was based on, between A and B script.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I got a follow-up question to this, because again, I'm thinking about like the coaching that I can give to the folks that I'm engaging with. And if I reflect back to my experience of like, I started off as an SDR, and I mean, we got introduced to like some framework, but I took a decent amount of liberties. Like, and and a lot of it was like, all right, like I just want to experiment because I want to be super successful. And like, I will find the 20 billion ways of not doing something, like of doing something wrong, to like find that 1 to 5 ways that work really, really well. But I would be curious to hear from each of you, like what this kind of proclivity to like stick your neck out, was this something that you're like, all right, hey, I'm just like this, I'm going to do this, right? Or was it something you had to develop over time? I'd be curious to hear your take.
Yeah, I want to hear what I want to hear what you guys have to say, because I know what my answer is.
Yeah.
I feel like anything you implement comes from like many different sources mixed together. And I think that's something that we don't admit, is any idea that you have isn't really your idea. There's no way you could just in a vacuum generate a brilliant sales idea without any sort of input into it, right? So like I was encouraged early on in my career to talk to every major great salesperson at Yelp. And I probably had 100 conversations about how to do a cold call pitch. And then I took those 100 conversations and I just put them all through my voice filter and found the one that worked for me. That was like a Frankenstein monster of sales, right? And I think that's what people mean when they say they're creating their own style, is they're just Frankensteining it. And that's not a bad thing. I think people think they're stealing, but it's like, you're not stealing, you're synthesizing. And that's what every good salesperson needs to do.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabrielle.
Oh, I mean, it just reminded me of one. It was so good, but it reminded me of, again, when I was this SDR, and we had a small team, so there was only maybe like 8 or 9 AEs, and I would just go and listen to each AE had their own, like came from different backgrounds, like different sales backgrounds, I should say. So you had some folks who were selling like they're selling like digital services, and you had one person who was selling localization stuff, and one person who was selling like contact data. And so I would just go in and I would listen to the verbiage that they used, and I would pay attention to what the customer, how they responded. So I'm like, all right, the customer was like, ooh, that's interesting. Like, tell me more. And I would pay super close attention to what the AE had said. So over time, I was like, okay, cool. Like over here, Robert, who's a localization guy, we're talking to translation folks. There's certain keywords that seem to align really well and are actually very, very powerful. But like, Whit over here, who was like selling to like VPs, like the VP level folks, right? He has these business impact words. Like I can actually create this beautiful language that resonates so much stronger because, yeah, like I've created this kind of like Franken voice for myself, but I'm also super excited about it because I'm like, ooh, look what I've created. So yeah, I love that.
I want to steal that, and I will probably, Patrick. Like, you're not stealing, you're synthesizing. Or there's probably other cool ways to spin that, but it's so true, right? Like, nobody really is coming up with some like brand new approach to cold calling. It's probably just like, a bit of a twist on it. But what I would add to what Patrick said is what he was talking about earlier, is double down on that training and that North Star. I'm fortunate that I've been in a space for like a decade, so I'm pretty comfortable talking about like the problems I know we can solve, but also the problems I know we can't solve. And I think people get like so infatuated with all the amazing things they do and the people they can help, but I think it's really important to also know like what you're not good at and where you shouldn't go, because you can get in a call and you're talking and you should be able to know, wait a minute, like we're actually not going to be able to help you, and people appreciate that. Like people, like that builds trust, saying actually that's not what we're good at. Because if you're just saying, yes, we're amazing at everything, after a while, people are like, no, that's impossible. Like, you can't solve all my problems.
Yeah,
So,
I completely agree. Please tell me where there will be a quote unquote guest appearance today.
I think she's talking about my props. I've always got
your props. Yeah. You got a pair of glasses or something there somewhere. I think that to answer your question, I think that there are so many intangible qualities that every salesperson possesses. And like you mentioned sitting with AEs, right? And listening. I love doing that. I love hearing how different one rep is from the next rep. Like, I remember sitting in a call room and like next to me was like, I don't know, she was in her 40s and she was like such a mom and she was very Southern and all of it. She just, every call was like talking to your mom, and that resonated with people. And she used layman's terms. She wasn't like, she did not read the script very well. And then this guy over here is like really cool, you know, this like just chill guy, you know, and his vibe worked for him. I feel like that is like inherently like the most important factor in a sales rep. Your ability to own who you are as an individual, because the more you try to get away from who you are, the more salesy, the more forced you'll sound. You won't be confident. It won't be natural. So like when I'm on calls with people, like, I mean, I like to joke around and be like, almost brutally honest. Like, I'm a sales rep. At the end of the day, like if I can sell you something, I will. But because we've kind of gotten that like out right up front, like, hey man, like I'm here to help. Like if there's something I can help you with, great. If I can't, no sweat off my back. Like it, you know, it is what it is. And tell me what you need, you know, kind of thing. But like I had one guy where we were running down this list of a bill of materials, right? And we're going through this. And I think like I said 24 and it was actually only 12 that he needed. And he was like, oh, Amy, hold on. That's only 24 or only 12 there that I need. And I was like, come on, man, I'm trying to upsell you. Like, give me a chance here, man. And he just died laughing. And I feel like that's one big component of like sales that maybe people hold back from, is they hide away from the actual fact that they're there to sell something if there's a need, if there's a genuine need. And when you kind of turn it on its head and make it like a joke, like, hey, I'm owning this. This is who I am. This is the role I'm in. But you're friendly and you're human and you're yourself. Like you don't lose your personality. I think that's what keeps people like, that's what keeps things ticking. So I think that, you know, you kind of have to be a little ballsy and confident. And even if you have to force that side of your personality, like if you're not the most confident person, you can learn confidence. It comes with repetition and time and practice and encouragement from others. You can own who you are as an individual, and that's only going to help you on your sales calls. It's never going to hurt you unless you're like, you know, from Brooklyn and you're like super like in your face, you know, and like you're calling someone in like Georgia that's like, you know, I mean, I think there's some regional context too, but that's a whole nother story.
No, that's
like,
I remember I was crashing at a friend's house or house sitting while I was trying to find an apartment while I was living in New York, and I was in Brooklyn and I was like sitting outside on the porch and I was like, people were just screaming at each other. And I was like, just normal. I was like, so every day that week, I'm like, oh, that's just how they talk to each other.
Yeah, but you know, if you have someone from up north calling on like southern states or like Texas or whatever, like sometimes that's a little bit of a hurdle to clear.
Yeah,
you know?
that could be a culture shock. Yeah, that's for sure. No, but I really appreciate what we're highlighting here of like, we have to own who we are. Like one, we have to own the fact that we're salespeople. Like we're in this profession. I do little plug. I do like a women in sales clubhouse room with Alexine Moudouar on Saturdays. And so we did a spin up room randomly during the week. And so we'll get folks who are just starting in their sales career. And they're like, and I think this is the most common question that I hear, which is, how do I make sure I don't sound salesy? Right. Like, and so I'm like, it's like hard.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean when you say you don't want to, like, what does salesy look like? And what does it mean to you? And they have this idea of like who they have to be. I'm like, okay, well now, like, let's imagine you're talking to your friend about this, or getting back to like just talk to friends. I even think about, again, like what helped me out a lot as an SDR. This is a time where I was super duper single. And like, I was like, oh, what is this Bumble app? Like, let me go on there. And I would go on dates galore. And I would just practice my pitch. Like,
you're brave, girl. You're brave.
Over and over. It never got to the second date because everyone was just like, she's really about her work. And I was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Wait a second. You were pitching a product to these people? Or was it a different kind of thing?
Well, it's like you meet, you're like meeting people, you go out on a first date. And so we were like, okay, well, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work at this company called CloudWords. They're like, oh, like, what is that? And I was like, okay, cool. Let me tell you about it. And I would 5 minutes, and then people would just be like sipping their drink.
Oh God, listen, I think you've like, this is like a new thing, like training by Bumble. Oh my God. Like, yeah, I totally feel you. I had one guy tell me at the end of a date that I was too invested in my career. And I was like, oh, okay, so I guess we're not going on a second date. And I was like, I didn't think that was a bad thing, but apparently it's a little off-putting. But oh my God, that is hysterical, girl. Oh my God.
I remember, no, it's funny. I remember going on this one date, and the guy was a sales engineer. And it was the first time that I was like, oh, like, we're both in the same space. We kind of do something. Like, I was like, we're right next to each other, so we can nerd out on this. And at the end, he was just like, so I'll be honest with you, I did not like you.
God, that's so funny. Oh God, that happened to me too.
And he's just like, you're just like too much work for me. I was like, well, thanks for the drinks. Bye.
So wait a minute. Did you convert anyone? That's all I want to know.
Did you close anyone?
Anybody to a lead?
Is that LinkedIn Live appropriate though? Like, seriously?
No, I don't think. No, I didn't.
Not a boyfriend or partner. No, like a client.
Any leads? No, absolutely no, no. I did not. Unfortunately, no, I did not.
Wouldn't that be awkward when they got through the sales cycle and somebody's like, well, how did you hear about us? Be like, well, through Bumble.
Oh my gosh, but no, I did. I remember there was like one time. This is such an aside, but yeah, I was like in between jobs, and I was like, how am I going? I was like, I don't want to pay for my own dinner. I don't even have another job. So I would just go on Bumble, and I was like, the guys would just pay for it. So I'd go 2 days a day for a week straight. So
I need to learn from your wicked ways. This is awesome.
Oh no, that was 2016 GB. That was before GB.
That was 2016 GB.
Okay.
God.
That was another time.
Can you imagine though, like giving that advice out to like SDRs, like, okay, so you need to go on a dating app. Oh, you have a boyfriend? It's fine. Just explain that it's for work.
Oh my God.
And all you're gonna do is go out on random dates and pitch your product on every date.
You know, just go on to chat roulette. Be careful.
Yeah.
But you could just
I don't feel like Gabrielle, I don't feel like we're following the script anymore.
No, we're not. No. Okay.
But you know, like this, what this boils down to though is like, this is how people are successful in this world and in this career is like by being open about like random. Okay, like I had a phone call with the customer right before this call, and this is for a deal I'm closing this quarter. And it's like my biggest deal. And the guy calls me up and he's like, hey, how's your son feeling? Because yesterday my son was projectile vomiting all over my house, all over my car, all over the waiting room of an urgent care. And I'm like freaking out. And so I got on a phone call with him after all of that had calmed down in the afternoon. And I was like, dude, like you just missed it. Like my son was like throwing up everywhere. And like, I told him what happened. He was laughing. He's like, oh my God, that sounds awful. But we bonded over projectile vomit, you know, and like how real life is. Like I'm in the middle of the end of quarter, the last like week to really close deals, and I'm in urgent care with my son who's uncontrollably vomiting, and I'm just like, what is happening? So instead of like hiding that, I was just like, hey dude, listen to what happened to my like shit show of a day. And I feel like you telling that story right there of like about Bumble and stuff like that, like telling that to your students or some version of that, and encouraging them to do the same thing to like family and friends. Like they might not have any family or friends at the end of it, but it will help them like develop their skills.
That's it. I mean, a lot of I have coached people up on it where I'm like, hey, like, walk me through how you would explain gong to a friend. And they're like, I'm like, well, have you tried explaining it to a friend? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, go do that. Run this pitch and see how much your friends understand. They're not going to. So
and
like,
the friends are going to give you direct feedback too, right? They'll be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, all right, hey, like, yeah, it's like especially for cold calls, I'm like, because there's not the benefit on cold calls specifically, right? There's not the benefit or the advantage of, hey, like, let me just show you what I mean, right? Like, let me like visualize this for you. So even in that, it's like, all right, hey, if our script is very like nuts and bolts, like you're reading like a product manual, then I was like, you're not going to ever spark any kind of visual for this person. Like you're not access. So like, Amy, I love when you're talking about like it had no passion, no conviction. And I tell people, like, especially if it's a technology that's not like a line item, a budget line item, it's a little bit disruptive, or it's something that can be transformational for an organization, it really is an evangelical sell. So we do have to we have to let our inner preacher out. So like that Southern Methodist, right? Like
Yes.
president, pastor, like has to come out on these calls, and like you have to get people hyped about what it is that you're selling, and like you yourself have to be hyped about it. So if you're over here like afraid to be yourself, like how can you really be that hyped, that excited about what you're really preaching to folks?
There's lots of comments in there about the, using the dating advice. So that one really struck a chord. But I was going to say, like, if you can't tell a quick story that like your mom or your aunt can't understand, like how you solve a problem, then you probably still need to practice.
Yep.
Like if you can't, like, and I love telling stories. I think that's how people typically pick things up, right? So if you can't say like, hey, this person, our customers or these people have these problems, and this is how we help solve them. Like if you can't articulate that, you probably need to get back to the drawing board, because if you can't explain that to your mom, who will listen to you, hopefully, nobody else is going to listen.
I think, guys, I mean, wouldn't you say that's probably the biggest problem that we see on 5 on Friday is the inability to articulate clearly and concisely and in layman's terms what a company does and how they solve a problem?
Yeah.
Like that's probably hands down the most like difficult thing that the thing that I see people struggling with more than anything. And it should be the foundational aspect of like what you're doing. Figure out a way to simplify what you're saying and practice that so it's just second nature. And talk to your friends, talk to your families, ask for that feedback. And I think that's the biggest thing that we see people struggle with is just the simplification. Does not have to be that difficult, at the end of the day.
Definitely. Well, I know we have like 3 minutes left. Do have to close out right at the hour. I'm trying to think, are there any closing notes, anything that you want to promote while we have this time?
I was going to tell one quick story, but because I think we often are in like the SaaS sales bubble, right? Where we have all these tools and assume everyone uses all these tools. And, I think it's become very clear that like some people, like a CRM is their stack. And that might be it. And so, we've had some people come on, like, remember the one guy, he had the tobacco shop in Manhattan, and he was like, how do I sell more lighters and pens during COVID? And at first I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. It could be a disaster, because everybody else on the call was a SaaS seller. But it was amazing. Like at the end of the day, how you're going to sell your product doesn't really matter if you're SaaS. But I think we can get in this bubble of being in SaaS sales, and I actually think it's a really delicate balance, because I think some of us have so many tools that like are a cognitive load on what we're doing in the day of all these tools we got to manage is like pushing out the common sense of like, how are you helping this customer? And they're like, oh yeah, I forgot. I've got 18 tools I'm supposed to be filling in for my boss. Like it's gotten almost like ridiculous sometimes. Like,
yeah.
Why do you have 8 tools? Like that's crazy. Anyway, that was almost like a side rant.
It's a real thing. I mean, it translates, tool fatigue in sales and overcomplicating things. And I think that transcends boundaries. I think that's a problem in in the tech world, like within, on a technical team, it's a problem in customer service. It's, I think that's, there's some industry-wide problems that will always exist. And as long as you speak to those and say specifically and clearly how you address those, like you're going to be light years above the people trying to complicate it more.
Yeah.
Patrick, what are you going to say? You're so quiet.
I know. Like I said, trying to give light to other voices. Also, I'm tired as hell. I'm going to plug my podcast. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Plug it.
Thank you. Yeah, I just did a live stream on Restream for the Customer Engagement Lab. We pitch it as like the daily show for business, sales, and marketing. The whole idea is it's like a sales comedy show, and we mess around and also give advice. Yeah, the live stream was super fun. I lost internet 4 times, and my mic cut out 4 times, but I told some funny jokes, so you should watch it. And just check
I haven't watched it yet, but I am definitely tuning in next time because it's going to be hysterical.
Yes. My first LinkedIn Live for SDR Hotline, we couldn't actually get it up and running until like 20 minutes past the time that it was supposed to start. So, like, I think that's just a initiation step right there.
Yeah, we were trying to run like 3 direct microphones into it and like all this lighting stuff, and we had a condenser and everything. Yeah, it was a mess.
This was fun, Gabrielle. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was gonna say, I'm gonna find a way to get back on the show. I know that our timing conflicts, but
yeah, for sure. We can move around. Like, we're not like married to a date or a time.
Cool.
We are married. We are married to a day. Like it has to be Friday.
Yeah, no worries. No, but I love this. It was so much fun. I appreciated each of y'all being here. I feel like I talked to y'all for hours. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good one, y'all.
Thanks for having us, Gabrielle. Have a good one, everybody.